I don't remember exactly when the pain started. There wasn't one loud explosion, no screaming, no dramatic collapse. It was quieter than that. It crept in during the in-between moments, between the texts that were never replied to, between the nights I couldn't sleep, between the times I told people I was fine and wished someone would call my bluff. Pain doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just changes you. I look in the mirror and I know I'm not the same person I used to be, not because of the way I look, but because of how I now feel things, or sometimes how I don't. There are days when I catch myself smiling in front of people. And then I feel nothing, just static, like my emotions are somewhere else, lagging behind. But here's the thing no one told me about pain. It doesn't only leave wounds, it reshapes you. Sometimes I wonder, if people could see the weight I carry, would they treat me differently? Would they understand why I hesitate before trusting? Why I walk away when things get too close? Why silence feels safer than speaking? I used to think these were signs of weakness. Now I'm not so sure, because if I'm still standing after all I've faced, then maybe, just maybe, this pain didn't break me. It built something else inside me, something quieter, stronger, more aware. If you've ever felt like the pain you carry has made you harder to recognize, if you've ever looked in the mirror and seen the scarred version of who you once were, then maybe you'll see a part of yourself in me. And maybe, just maybe, what we see as damage most people is actually think pain the looks like crying, of survival, or screaming, or collapsing on the floor, and sometimes it does, but not always. Pain can also look like a smile at the wrong time, a joke that feels just a little too forced. A quiet person who used to be full of life, that was me. I didn't realize how much I had changed until I couldn't recognize how I reacted to things anymore. I used to be carefree. I used to laugh without thinking twice. I used to trust people with my whole heart, and then life started dealing me losses. One heartbreak, then another, then a betrayal that cut deeper than I thought was possible. I told myself I was fine, that this was just part of growing up, that everyone went through this. But deep down, I wasn't fine. I was shutting down. I stopped sharing how I really felt. I became hyper-aware of how people looked at me. I started scanning for signs that someone might leave, might lie, might hurt me. I didn't call it trauma back then. I just thought I was becoming smarter, more careful, more realistic. But I wasn't just growing cautious. I was growing closed, and the problem is no one noticed because I was still functioning. I still smiled. I still went to work. I still helped friends. But inside, it felt like I was carrying a backpack full of bricks. Memories, regrets, questions, and the fear that if I put the bag down, everything I had been holding together would fall apart. I started developing patterns, ways of coping that I didn't even recognize as responses to pain. I couldn't see that I was becoming more empathetic because I had suffered. I couldn't see that I tried to fix everyone else because I couldn't fix myself. I couldn't see that I had stopped trusting, not just people, but life itself. Pain doesn't always come with clear signs. It often hides in your habits, in your choices, in the way you show up or don't. And slowly, without knowing it, pain starts rewriting your identity, not because you're weak, but because you're human. I didn't know then that what I was experiencing had a name. That trauma could reshape your nervous system. That survival mode could become a way of life. But now I do. And maybe, if you felt these things too, it's time to look at your own habits. Because sometimes what we think is just who we are is actually just who we had to become in order to survive. But what I was actually becoming was hypervigilant. After you've been hurt deeply, your brain starts to see the world differently. It's a defense mechanism, a survival strategy, one that whispers to you, never let that happen again. And here's what that looked like for me. I developed empathy. But not just ordinary empathy. It became almost like a sixth sense. I could pick up on someone's shift in tone before they even finished a sentence. I could sense discomfort in a crowded room, like static in the air. People called me intuitive, but the truth is I had learned to read danger in micro-expressions, because once I missed the signs, and it hurt. Now I read everything, every pause, every sigh. Every "I'm fine" that sounds just a bit too thin. I learned what it meant to suffer quietly. So now I can't help but notice when someone else is doing the same. That's the beauty of post-traumatic empathy. It's not just kindness. It's recognition. You've been there, and now you can see the invisible pain in others. But that empathy came with a cost. I developed what psychologists call a savior complex. I didn't just want people to be okay. I needed them to be okay because their pain reminded me of mine, and if I could rescue them, maybe it meant I had some power over what once made me feel powerless. So I became the helper, the fixer. The one who would stay up at 2 a.m. to talk someone out of their breakdown, even if I was breaking too. But I didn't realize that in trying to save others, I was abandoning myself. Burnout didn't come with flashing lights. It came in silence, in numbness, in not knowing what I needed anymore because I was so tuned into everyone else. Compassion is beautiful, but boundaries are necessary. That's something I had to learn the hard way. And then there was the guarded heart. I didn't even know how much I had walled myself off. I still smiled. I still joked. But intimacy felt like exposure. Vulnerability felt like danger. Judith Herman, a trauma researcher, calls this a natural defense. When your trust has been broken, your brain rewires to keep you safe, not open. Safe, so I kept people at a distance, close enough to care, but far enough that they couldn't hurt me. The problem is, connection requires risk, and healing requires connection. I was caught in a loop, wanting love but fearing it, craving closeness but sabotaging it. It took me a long time to learn that trust doesn't come back all at once. It returns in pieces, and it's okay to rebuild slowly. And then I craved solitude, not because I hated people, but because I needed to hear myself again. After so much chaos, noise felt overwhelming. Silence became sacred. Being alone was no longer lonely, it was restorative. It was where I processed what I couldn't explain to others, where I cried without justifying it, where I stopped performing for approval. I began to understand that healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it happens in the quietest places. Pain also made me obsessed with control. After so much uncertainty, I needed routine. Predictability, structure. I made backup plans for backup plans. I rehearsed conversations in my head before they even happened. I overprepared, because unpredictability once shattered me. But here's what I had to learn. Control is a safety blanket, not a cure. You can't prepare for everything, but you can build the strength to handle what comes. Letting go wasn't about giving up. It was about trusting that I'd survived worse. Resilience became my silent weapon, not the kind people cheer for, the kind no one sees, the kind where you get up and go to work with a smile even though your chest is heavy, where you show up to therapy even when progress feels invisible, where you love again after being shattered. People called me strong, but they didn't see the nights I broke down, or the mornings I nearly gave up. Resilience is not about never falling. It's about choosing to stand back up even if you're trembling. And finally, I became hyper-independent. I stopped asking for help, not because I didn't need it, but because I was afraid it wouldn't come, because needing people had once led to betrayal. So I trained myself to never need anyone. It made me efficient, reliable, but also lonely. Hyperindependence is a trauma response dressed up as competence. It whispers, if I do it alone, I can't be disappointed. But healing means unlearning that too. It means letting safe people in, even just a little. Because we were never meant to carry everything alone, pain transformed me. It reshaped how I see people, how I react, how I connect, and how I protect myself. But understanding these patterns gave me power. It helped me stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what happened to me? And that shift, that question, changed everything. People often ask me, how did you start healing? What helped you get through it? And the truth is, there was no magical moment, no big breakthrough, just small shifts, tiny, consistent changes that didn't look like much at first. But over time, they started to anchor me. They started pulling me out of survival mode, and I want to share some of those shifts with you, because maybe they'll help you find your footing too. 1. I learned to check in with myself, not just with others. I used to be the person who asked everyone, "How are you really doing?" But I never turned that question inward. Now I pause. I ask myself daily, "How's your heart? What are you carrying right now? What do you need today that you didn't get yesterday?" Self-awareness is a muscle. You don't build it by ignoring yourself. You build it by listening without judgment. 2. I gave myself permission to rest, not just physically, emotionally. There were days I used to push through everything: work, relationships, expectations. But now I've learned that healing happens best when I'm not fighting myself. So I rest without guilt, without apology. Sometimes that means saying no. Sometimes it means canceling plans. Sometimes it means taking a walk alone instead of showing up for one more obligation. And that's okay. 3. I created little rituals that grounded me. When everything felt chaotic, I found peace in structure. Not control, just rhythm. A warm cup of tea every morning. The same song when I journal. Lighting a candle when I feel overwhelmed. These small acts reminded me that I still have power, even when life feels uncontrollable. I can choose how I care for myself. One of my favorites is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise. 5 things I can see, 4 I can touch, 3 I can hear, 2 I can smell, 1 I can taste. It pulls me out of spirals and into the present. Right here, right now, alive. 4 I practiced saying what I actually mean. I stopped saying I'm fine when I was. I stopped shrinking my truth to keep others comfortable. That was hard, but my healing depends on honesty. Now I practice using phrases like, "I'm not okay, but I'm working through it." "I don't have the words right now, but I feel heavy." "I need some space, and it's not personal." It's not about oversharing. It's about aligning my words with my truth. 5. I learned the difference between boundaries and walls. For a long time, I confused the two. I thought protecting myself meant shutting everyone out, but boundaries are not about isolation. They're about intention. Now I ask myself, is this boundary coming from fear or from self-respect? I give people access based on consistency, not charm. I listen more to actions than apologies. And most importantly, I trust myself to walk away from what drains me. 6. I stopped waiting to feel ready. Healing isn't a straight line. There's no moment when everything clicks into place, so I started showing up scared. Trying even when I doubted myself, speaking even when my voice trembled, and every time I did, my confidence grew, not because I was fearless, but because I chose to act despite the fear. 7. I built a support system slowly, but intentionally. Not everyone deserves access to your healing. Not everyone knows how to hold your truth gently. I started seeking out people who made me feel safe. People who listened without fixing, who stayed even when I was messy, who asked how they could support me instead of assuming. Healing in community changed everything, because pain isolates, but connection restores. Even one safe person can be enough. 8. I began celebrating the smallest victories, getting out of bed on a hard day, not texting someone who hurt me, choosing not to numb the pain with distractions. Holding eye contact instead of looking away. These aren't small things, they're everything. They're the quiet revolutions that healing is made of. 9. I forgave myself for not healing faster. There were days I beat myself up for still struggling, for still missing them, for still feeling broken. But then I realized healing is not a competition. It's not about speed, it's about depth. Some wounds take time. And that's not weakness, it's honoring what you've been through. 10. I started believing that I could create something beautiful out of what broke me, not to erase the pain, but to give it purpose. I began using what I learned to support others. To write, to speak, to show up with honesty, because the pain didn't destroy me, it shaped me, and now it guides how I love, how I serve, how I live. Healing isn't loud, it doesn't always look like milestones. Sometimes it looks like breathing through the ache, choosing not to numb, showing up when it's hard, and those moments stacked gently, one on top of the other. That's what transformation is made of. If you've made it this far, there's a reason. You've felt it too, haven't you? The silent kind of pain, the kind that doesn't scream but still leaves a mark. Maybe you've been carrying things that no one else sees. Maybe you've learned to smile while your heart trembles. Maybe you've picked yourself up more times than you can count. If so, let me say this to you, as someone who knows that journey well. You are not broken, you are becoming. You are not weak, you are weathered, wiser, more awake to the depth of life than most people will ever be. What happened to you was never fair, but what you build from it, that's yours. That's your power. Your scars are not shameful. They are evidence that you healed, evidence that you lived through it. And if you're still struggling, still searching, still learning how to breathe again, that's okay too. There is no rush, no deadline on healing, only the quiet miracle of continuing, of still waking up, still trying, still hoping, even when the weight is heavy. That's strength. You may not always feel strong, but if you've made it through things that once felt impossible, you already are, you're still here, and that means something. So today, I invite you to do one simple thing. Recognize the resilience in you. Name it, honor it. Look at how far you've come, not with judgment, but with awe. You didn't just survive, you adapted, you transformed. You grew into someone who sees the world more clearly, who feels more deeply, who understands what it means to keep going. You're not alone in this, not anymore. If any part of my story sounded like yours, share it. Let someone else know they're not the only one either. And if you need support, ask for it. You are not a burden. You are a human being learning to carry heavy things, and that deserves compassion. So keep going, keep showing up. Not perfectly, just honestly. You are worthy of peace, of love, of healing, and of every soft, beautiful thing this life still has to offer. Let's not just survive pain. Let's become something extraordinary because of it. If this story touched you, leave a comment below. Tell me, what did pain teach you that you never expected to learn? And if you're ready to go deeper, we've created a video just for you about how to heal after trauma. Click it. Watch it and remind yourself you were never meant to do this alone. We're healing together.